Now it's recording.
Okay. All right, we have our tech support here. It is recording per. All right. Coach P. Per Steve. All right. Okay. Lionel Sanders is in. Great. Tim Kronk, Tim Sullivan. I'm Patrick on the participant list, so I signed in as him. We're 7 minutes in, so I think we might have everybody that we're going to have. So let me go ahead and get started. So for anybody that's watching this, I'm Brian Hagan. I am not Patrick, as it says here on the screen. I've been with EN for, I'm losing track now, 4 or 5 years. My ultra experience is not as great as some of the people that are on the line here. Really, the only ultra race I've done is the ultra distance triathlon, which is Ultraman Florida. So I can talk a little bit about my training for Ultraman Florida and the gear, but I think where a lot of this is going to go is to the discussion of the ultra runners and the guys doing the 50Ks and the 100Ks and the 100 milers that are out there. And what I kind of wanted to do, there was a whole list of things here, and I kind of want to break it down into training and then into actual gear. So we'll do training, then we'll do gear, and then we'll do actual race, logistics, crew, all that good stuff. So I know when I first found out that people actually ran more than 26.2 miles, I was pretty surprised. And at the time I was running marathons, and I was probably running around 40 miles a week. And my assumption was that if somebody was going to train for a 100-mile run or 100K run, that they must be doing several 90-mile runs or whatever at that distance. And you know, later on, I came to find out that that really wasn't the case. That although your mileage might go up to 60, 70, 80 miles a week, but it was just more of the back-to-back long runs, at least for me for Ultraman. I mean, the most I did for Ultraman was, and let me go back, the distance for Ultraman was a double marathon, so 54 miles. And the most I did for that, I did, I think 3 or 4 back-to-back 20s where I do a 21 day and 20 the next day. And I found that were, and I also did a 50K in my training, and that was about the most I did. But I as moderator of this, I'd like to turn this over to you guys and kind of let's go around the room and see what you guys have found for your training for ultra marathons. So does anybody want to start?
Yeah, Brian.
Hey, Tim.
I'm having technical difficulties. I'm trying to find, I left the screen for a minute and now I can't seem to find it. So I'll be with you guys in a minute. I'm listening though.
Okay. Yeah, and I could see you while you were talking.
Yeah,
So,
I can see the green light of the, I'm going to just launch the whole thing again, see if that works.
okay.
I need
All
Steve
right.
here to help me out.
Our tech support. All right.
All right, it's back open. It was probably under my windows there the whole time.
Okay. All right. So, Tim, maybe question for you as far as training goes for ultra marathon. Like, what maybe would your typical build look like? Whether it was 100K, 50 miler.
I was kind of hoping we were going to do this after.
Okay.
So I'd get a little, I would feel a little bit more solid in my theories of what's worked for me.
Yeah.
I did 200 miles last year, and let's see, I think I've done 6 50Ks and 6 50 milers if you count the Ultraman and the Grand Canyon cross. So feel like I have a lot of experience, but then again, I feel like I don't have a lot of experience. So I really wanted to wait until after Leadville to do this, but I have some basic theories. I'm working on a wiki upgrade, I think, for EN, and I'll be correlating that with Patrick. But as far as your question is to basics for training for like a 50K, I think building up to back-to-back days of like 15 or 16 miles in 2 days. So you're covering that. You covered the 50 miler, like for Ultraman. I think if you're going for the 50-mile distance, I think back-to-back 25-mile days is a good thing to shoot for. And for the 100-miler, it's at some point you can't do the distance. So you have to go with what's reasonable. And I mean, the difference between 50 miles and 100 miles training wise really isn't that much. So I think you can bump that up to a couple 25-mile days. And obviously if you can get a 50-miler race under your belt prior to the 100-miler, that's a good big day. But I mean, unless you're Francis, nobody wants to go out and do a 13-hour training run 5 weeks out. It happens and people do it, but you know, as far as minimums and what we can handle, I think those are things to shoot for those distances.
The one thing that I noticed people doing is using other races as stepping stones. So maybe if you're training for 100K, maybe you'll do a 50-miler, you'll do a 50K and kind of build up to it. And perhaps that's a good way to practice nutrition and drop zones and all that kind of stuff to kind of help prepare you for the longer distances, no?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a no-brainer. If you're going for a 50-miler, you should put a 50K in your training somewhere. If you're going for the, you know, the 50-mile and the 100K are pretty close enough. I would call them the same animal, although they're not always. It depends on which one you are. But if you're going for the 100-miler, you certainly probably should have a 50-miler or a 100K in that build to get you that confidence and that one long day.
The one thing I've noticed too is people paying attention to vertical, you know, maybe as much or more so maybe than mileage. And I guess that would depend on which race you were doing and what venue your race was going to be.
That's a very, that's in this specificity. And that's, I think, really important. If, I'll go with just a 100-miler like Leadville or Vermont. They're both right around 15,000 for the 100 miles. So that's 150 feet per mile. So a good thing to shoot for in your training is to average 150 feet per mile on whatever terrain you're training on. And again, it's like 100-mile distance. You can't just start knocking off 100-mile weeks. You can't knock off 15,000 foot weeks every week. So I think as long as you're trying to accumulate as many weeks as you can, maybe half that distance and half that elevation, you're at least, you're getting a good chunk of the training in that you need to complete that distance. You know, not doing 15,000 vertical in a week after week until you build up to it and you're that strong, I think that's an invitation for injury. So I think something like 7,500 a week, build up to that, and then of course exceed it if you can. But so yeah, you have to track the distance because that's what you're going for. But the elevation is a very specific and very important thing to adjust and adapt to, for sure.
Yeah, and another, you keep reminding me of other things now, and other things I've heard of is to be good at hiking, because at some point or another you're going to be hiking. I've heard that people use strategies of hiking the uphills and running the flats and things of that nature. I guess that all depends on ability, and So
The longer the race gets, the hills that you thought were hills, it's all relative.
turns into a mountain.
Yeah, hiking is important. That's a weakness of mine. I've been working on. I'm a slow hiker and I'm a slow walker. I could barely keep up to Francis last weekend when he was walking. I felt like I was running, but it can be trained, and like anything, and it should be trained. And I think the longer you go, the more you should train hiking and walking, not just hiking, but walking as well, and on all different grades, up and down.
Okay. Anybody else want to chime in here?
Yeah, so Tim talked about the elevation, and I think each course has its own elevation profiles. Leadville has a lot of runnable sections, but then it has some super steep stuff.
Yeah.
You know, walking 20% grade is a lot different than doing 4% grade or the difference. So it's crazy, and I think that's why Tim he has so much more experience than a lot of us, but he still doesn't feel quite comfortable because every race is different. And one may be rolling hills, another one may be like Leadville, where you not only have a huge mountain passing thing, you're starting at 10,000 feet, so you're already at 30% less oxygen.
Yeah.
And I found a huge difference between my 50-mile race and my 100K race. And it was all because I went out too fast, even though I tried to go slow initially. So that extra 16 miles and the extra how many ever feet of elevation on tough terrain it was a killer. So Leadville is going to be interesting because you almost have to just go so slowly to start so you don't blow up when you have, after 40 miles of relatively easy running. And I mean, you know, you're still at 10,000 feet. You have, 4,000 feet of gain or something pretty fast. And then you turn around and do it again.
Yeah. And that's where pacing is one of the things that we wanted to talk about. So that's kind of a good lead in. The other thing you have to worry about with Leadville and maybe some of these other races are cutoff times. So
yeah, and those change.
So you want to take it
too.
Yeah. So you want to take it easy, but you can't take it too easy, otherwise you'll be out of the race, right? So
yeah. I don't remember. I think Leadville, what is it? 50% are out by mile 40 or 50 because of cutoffs. It's pretty high, whatever it is. It's aggressive there, whereas other races aren't as aggressive with that. So you have to. They're like mini races, which I think helps the triathlete in us. That you like having these mini goals that you have to set.
For sure. Anybody else on training? Okay. I think the other thing is that I'd like to talk about is the gear. And I think a lot of folks that might watch this are triathletes and are used to $8,000 bikes and $900 wetsuits and ceramic speed and disc wheels and all kinds of stuff. So certainly, I think it's a lot less for the ultra running sport. But what I've noticed from listening to some of you guys, that there's still are some things out there, whether it's a hydration pack, whether it's poles, whether it's shoes that, especially these people that put 100 miles a month on these shoes or 800 miles a month on these shoes, they seem to go through them pretty quick. So I think and I might even be missing something here, but I'm thinking specifically hydration packs. I know, and it's funny because I listen to you guys talk, and some people love certain ones, some people hate them. So some of it has to do with preference. I know some of you guys use poles, so you need to have a place to hold your poles. You have to have a place to hold water, extra water beside what's in your bladder. Anybody want to kind of talk a little bit about gear and maybe what some of their preferences are. And I don't want to stick just to hydration pack and poles. We can talk about shoes or any of the gear that you might need to think about for ultra running.
Hey, Brian. So just one of the things that you hit on there real quick that I think is important is just finding out what works for you. Same thing goes for shoes, vests, lights, etc. Just realizing what works for yourself. I mean, if you talk to Gabe will tell you about how much he loves his waist light. You talk to Kronk, and Kronk will tell you how much he hates it. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that, just like everything else, there are a million options out there. And I think you've got to take some of the feedback from others, but unfortunately, it's going to be an expensive learning curve where you're going to end up with a lot of gear that you're going to end up flipping because you think, oh my God, this is going to be the best thing ever. And you wear it one time and you're like, I hate it.
Yeah.
So it's the big thing is just, you don't have to lock yourself in from the beginning to any one particular piece of gear. You might not do it right the first time, but until you actually practice and train with the gear that you think you want to use, you won't know whether that is the gear that you actually do want to use.
Yeah, you reminded me of one other topic when you mentioned headlamp. As the distances get longer, the probability of you running in the dark and at night gets greater and greater, right? So not only do you have to have a headlamp, you have to make sure it's charged, you have a backup, you have batteries, all that type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
and that's also another thing that factors in when you are making those gear selections, because you might have something like a Petzl now that is a great focused headlamp. Unfortunately, it uses a proprietary battery that each additional battery is going to run you $70.
oh man, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Meanwhile, if you have one of like the ultimate, is it the ultimate direction waist lamps that Gabe loves?
Ultra Aspire. They're
Ultra Aspire.
$8 batteries.
Exactly. So I mean, all of those are just different things, and you just have to find what works for yourself.
Yeah. Another item that I just thought of too is the watch. I know some of these races that start to get into the 20-hour plus time frame. I know I talked to one of the local ultra runners here, and I know at some point she has to run with like a charger and charge her phone for like an hour while she's running. And I know Francis was talking about getting a watch that had maybe 100 hours of battery life or something like that. So that's also, I think, something to consider. If there's and one of the things that I love about the ultra community is there's people out there that really could care less, and they're just out there running and they're having a good time, and it's not nearly as type A as we're used to in the triathlon world. So like take Tim for instance, we found out that he's cheating on us and not recording all of his runs on today. So whereas I don't know if I could do a workout if I didn't have my watch. I mean, I would probably drive home and get it and come back. So it's just a little bit more laid back, I think. Unless you're Tim Kronk, then you're still going to have everything in WK04 and tracked
Well, one
along
of
the
the
way.
things you say there, that one of the hardest things switching from like a marathon or triathlon background is not worrying about how far you run in a 4-hour, 5-hour window. When you're doing a lot of elevation, you're running slow, you're walking, and you just got to let that out of the door. And it's like, I don't really care how far I run in the 4 or 5 hours, as long as I'm on my feet doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's hard to overcome sometimes.
And it's not just the elevation. I mean, you can have, the terrain is just as important as the vertical. So I mean, you can have something to where you might only be getting 50, 75 feet per mile, but if you're running on nothing but jagged granite as opposed to river rock, it's a huge difference.
Okay. Anything else on gear? We didn't really touch on shoes a whole lot. I think that might be a good thing to talk about.
I'll talk a little bit.
Don't go with Hans.
Okay.
They don't.
The light conversation we had.
Yeah.
Any of them. So I've worn the waist belt. It seems to get in my way. The headlamp always makes me dizzy and squeezes my head. And
Yeah.
flashlights. A lot of guys like flashlights. There's mini flashlights. There's glove flashlights. So those are nice choices. But then when you get to an aid station or you want to do something like go to the bathroom or do something with your pack, stuff is in your way. So I have yet to find the light. I did get by the Petzl now, and I like it, but as Steve said, it's heavy. It's got an extra battery that's maybe not perfect, but it's a difficult and individual thing. I'll probably use a combination of all the above for Leadville, and I'll save the now for late at night when I'm going to be really needing that light the most, when I'm the most tired.
Yeah.
The
The headlamp makes me dizzy.
On the watch thing, last year at Ghost Train, I had just gotten the stride. I had been training with it. I was so excited. I charged it all up, and then when I hit the button to go at start, it didn't work. I remember. Yeah. The GPS wasn't working. The whole watch wouldn't work. So I ran 100 miles when I was going by the time on the watch, and it took me a while to realize that the time was sticking. It would stick and then jump like minutes. So I wasn't even running, but I was trying to run 10 minutes and walk a minute, and even that wasn't working because the time wasn't right. When Heather got done running her 45, she gave me her watch, and I used her watch. So I mean, I about halfway through time, but I didn't use pace. I didn't use heart rate or anything. I've already made the decision for Leadville. I'm taking the stride off my shoe and the heart rate off of my chest. I'm gonna wear my watch, and I'm gonna use a charger. They have the little lipstick chargers, which they dump the charge in your phone or your watch pretty quickly. So you only have to wear it from one aid station to the next, and you can get rid of it, or you can give it to a pacer if they. Yeah. But I'll be planning on charging my watch at right around probably 15 hours, and hopefully that'll work till the end. If it doesn't, it's not a big deal.
Okay. Let me go. I wonder if I'll get 5 different answers here. I'll go from person to person here. I'll start with Tim Kronk. What shoes do you wear?
I've been wearing Ultras, and I've been really tired of the fit from brand to brand, model to model, and year to year. And I've finally figured out that they're part of why I trip. And I've actually read articles or other people's comments about it, but I never would have believed it had I not experienced it. But I've been running lately in Topos and Vask, which are both 5mm drops, and my falling down is a lot less than when I'm wearing Ultras. But either way, I'm probably going to be running in Topo and Vask at Leadville this year, and I have not been running in my Ultras at all.
Okay. What about Sullivan?
Hoka Speed Goats, and I know Gabe Peterson uses those too. So I got a couple pair of those, and they're stable. They're about a 4 to 5mm drop. Also, seems to be a good thing. But just a little bit wider footing helps. On the rocky trail, so you don't get beat up on, your feet just pounding on rocks.
Yeah. So Francis, what are these shoes you're apart every month?
It's the On shoes, but they're so comfortable, and I love them, but they don't last, especially the run I did with Tim. We did like 20-mile run with new pair, and they were just destroyed at the end. So, but I have other strong stronger pair, the Cloud Venture, which are the one I use for Vermont. They're big, heavy, but at least they last. But I wish the Cloud Venture Peak would be able to last long, because you feel like walking without any shoes. It's so comfortable, but it die just by staring at it.
You go through so many, you could be a shoe tester for them. So
yeah,
maybe.
They're sending me the revised version.
Okay. Yeah.
So hopefully they'll last longer.
Okay. Steve, I think you're a Pegasus guy.
No. Trail, I'm 100% Vaporfly.
Oh, okay.
Now,
you like the black toes.
For trail, I was with the Speed Goat, and before that, there was a previous Hoka. But in general, I've been happy with my Hokas.
Okay.
They have come out with a Nike Pegasus Trail. I'd be interested to try that one, but I haven't yet. It's supposed to have a wide toe as well.
Yeah, I like the Ultras, but I mean, I'm primarily road running, and I haven't run on trails in a long time. But I for some reason or another, my feet have gotten wider, and I like that wide toe box that the Ultra has.
That's
so
one thing you bring up
for
the Ultras. You should probably wear a little bit bigger shoe if it's a long run. Your feet do grow.
They get so inflamed.
So inflamed.
For sure.
So big.
Oh. All right. So now the next piece that I want to get into is kind of the race itself. I know there's some races, a lot of races where there's crewing seems to be a much a common, whereas in Ironman we're used to no outside assistance or no pacing or anything like that. Crewing seems to be a pretty standard thing, especially once you get up above 50 mile from that standpoint. So, and it's not the easiest thing to, I think some people get volunteers, to find the right person, the right personality, but just a little bit on crewing, the drop bags, the logistics, all that type of stuff. And actually, I think, I'm not sure who would have the most experience with that here in this group. Tim Sullivan, have you had a crew on any of your? It seems like you just drive yourself out in the van and go run and then come back to the van.
I drive myself and go run. I've even done races where they didn't even allow crew or aid station help. Just as all on your own, drop bag type stuff. And in Leadville, I'm just going to ask for somebody at Winfield, and if someone comes, that's fine. If not, that's fine too. I'll just hang on to somebody else probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I know I had for my experience with Ultraman, a crew was required. You had to have at least, I want to say it was at least 3. It might have been 2, but I had 4. Francis was one of mine, and you kind of get compared to what you guys do out on the trails. I think you get babied a little bit at Ultraman because they've got a car following you, and anything you need, it's there. I even had Francis even carried my hydro pack for me. So a bit different there. I don't think you're going to get that service out at Leadville. From anybody, but I would think the personality might matter a little bit too, because I'm assuming well, a lot of times people aren't in the best moods once they start to hit 30 miles and up, so that could come into play also.
Yeah, Francis gets really grumpy.
Yeah, so Tim, you crewed Francis, right, last weekend, so I saw that you gave us,
which is quite a bit different than crewing, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he was carrying ice.
Which technically was not really allowed. Leadville actually allows muling just like Ultraman does, which is one of the few 100-mile races that they allow the pacer to mule and carry your gear for you. So they're allowed to help quite a bit in Leadville. So I wouldn't be surprised if the people standing at Winfield almost wouldn't expect to carry a little extra gear or something along those lines.
Okay.
I mean, the biggest thing is laying out your logistics. You never know. You always have to set yourself up to be able to complete, no matter, you might miss your crew, you might miss your pacer, they may miss you, circumstances beyond your control. You get to an aid station, you're certainly not going to wait. So you should probably at least make sure you logistically set your day up to complete it, whether or not you have crew or not. Getting your headlamp, getting rid of your headlamp, change of clothes or shoes, additional clothes when it gets dark, those type of things. Logistically, you kind of got to plan your day out by time and time of day, and when you think you're going to be at each aid station, that you may need what you really need at that aid station. So there's some thought to go into that, whether you're solo or crew or crewed.
And that also goes into the difference between crewed and paced. And obviously Tim has his secret weapon with Heather. It's where it's knowing how the other person works is a really big benefit. So that the cycles that people are going to go through, what they need, what they don't need, how you can read their different reactions, being able to differentiate between pain and discomfort and how to treat each of those individual conditions.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And you can get a feel of your runner. If you're pacing along with somebody like I did with Francis, it took me a little while to figure them out, but they have tells that you can see and feel how their body signals, the body language the body's given off. So yeah, you can get to know somebody pretty quick under those conditions if you just observe and listen to them.
Okay. Trying to look at the list here. I think we've gone through just about everything. We did talk about pacing a little bit. Nutrition we maybe haven't touched on. So is it you just go through about 150 gels? Is that typically what you would do on this? I'm being sarcastic. I know. You kind of get to where you got to eat sandwiches and pancakes with stuff inside of them and stuff like that. So maybe we can kind of go through a few people and talk about what types of foods you eat and how much and what type of calories you try to bring in during the race.
Well, for me, I make sure that I'm drinking, sort of sipping on stuff sort of constantly. And then every, I don't know, if it's 5 to 8 miles, I'm gonna eat something solid. I'm just gonna make myself eat, X number of calories per whatever. And it's I can eat pretty much everything so far. I haven't got to where it's not been a situation where I can't tolerate something, but you have to eat. Otherwise, if you get behind, you're just toast. And the other thing I do, if it's hot or if it's even warm, I take a salt tablet or, with an electrolyte tablet every couple hours or hour and a half or whatever it is, just to stay on top of that. And because all the stuff you read and all the stuff you see is, especially like in a Leadville or a long race, it can take hours for you to recover if you get behind, and you just don't want that. You'd rather be way ahead of that. So just constantly have something. Don't think, oh, I can go. I don't need anything right now. And start slow. The longer it is, the slower you got to start, because it comes up on you. I mean, I'm sure I'll be happy through 50, and then I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah.
But I'll try to be.
Yeah. So any other thoughts on nutrition? Obviously, that's something we talked about. Practice races, shorter distance races, you have plenty of opportunity to try stuff out ahead of time. I've heard people talk about tailwind and scratch. I never heard of tailwind until I started talking about ultra running with you guys. So that seems to be a popular product to use. So, and then I know,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, for me, what I observed in my 2 last races I did is that I really stuffed myself on the first half, probably like 400, 500 calorie per hour, and that I slow down and I switch to liquid, basically the tailwind, which is really high caloric. The thing with tailwind is that you really have to drink water because you will get dehydrated because it's 180 calories per scoop. So basically, if you do a 2-liter blader,
Wow.
it's almost 2,000 calories in that blader. So, and I think Tim raised it while we were running together and said, "Hey, you're not taking much calories." And I said, "I'm maybe half my blader since you pick me up." So a lot of calories and tailwind.
Do you have to worry about protein at all at some point or another? I would think you would. Is that in any of there, or no? Is that not something that you need to worry about?
I didn't need to worry about, but I don't know if I should worry.
Yeah.
Maybe for the multiple days like Moab, I will, but for 24, 30 hours, I don't think. I think you can go without on 100 milers, but longer, I don't think it will be something I have to think.
Yeah.
But you get that from your yogurt anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, Chobani is there.
If you're eating any real food at all, you're going to get calories. You're going to get you're going to get some protein. So it's, I don't know. I don't think anyone's going to run 100 miles without eating, they're not just, the average person's not going to eat just all gels and sports drink. So they'll get protein and fat. And
like I love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and they always have those on Ultra. So
yeah,
absolutely.
And they're great.
Yeah, but I've heard of people eating nuts and stuff like that. Seeds.
I can tell you from pacing with Tim last year, he ate everything, but overwhelmingly it was all real food. But again, it all goes back to what works for you.
I'll even throw that out there. On Vermont has too many aid stations, and that's a problem 2 ways. It's a problem trying to figure out your nutrition, but it's also a problem because you spend time at them. So Steve and I did a pretty good job of walking. We were walking at that point, so we'd walk through, but we all grab something to eat at every aid station, which I think is just a good technique. If you drink and carry blocks and gels in between the aid station, just show up at every aid station and eat whatever looks good, and then keep moving. And there's no sense in overthinking it and trying to plan for it. But when you're hungry, you'll eat. But when you're in between for long periods, just make sure you still have something so you're not going into a deficit. So if you're drinking high calorie sports drink, keep on drinking it, and carry blocks or something that you can at least throw 50 to 100 calories every half hour.
Keep moving, I think, is
definitely those stoop waffles are good too.
Those in Leadville.
the keep moving is a big thing because, like you said, last year Vermont, we would go in, grab something, and be out, and there would be people that they must have been in there for 15, 20 minutes every aid station. When you've got an aid station at Vermont, like you said, 8 miles.
Oh,
That that
it's like every 5 miles.
Yeah, they're closer than that.
Yeah.
when you add 5 minutes to every aid station, you're gonna spend an extra 2 hours right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I know where the 38 seconds went.
Yeah. Your head and horse.
The white thing.
Okay. All right. Is there anything we missed here? You guys want to? Any other thoughts? I think we covered all the topics here. So, all right. Well, hopefully this recorded correctly, and I got capture all this, because I think this is pretty gold. I think this we got quite a bit of pretty good information in here for everybody to look at. So, appreciate you guys calling in and participating in the discussion. And I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. And thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Brian.
Nice job.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Too, folks.
All right, hopefully end meeting is all I have to push.
Fire starting.
Those
Uh-huh.